I've looked at it from a slightly different perspective as to who your prospective investor base may be, meaning that, and the number of investors that you'll have. Meaning that if you're doing a friends and family round, that you might have 5, 10, 20, people putting in $50,000 to $100,000. There's no reason, in my opinion, at that moment in time, to necessarily convert from an LLC to a C Corp. If you, however, are contemplating either at that moment in time or subsequent, meaning in the next round, to potentially seek to attract any type of institutional capital, that's a really good time to have that done. And there's a couple different reasons for it, and I'll caveat it by also just understanding that you really should be talking to your accountant and auditors about potential tax implications to founders on the conversion. So there's a lot of important considerations there, particularly if you have loans outstanding, particularly if you have loans where you're personally guaranteeing that will be shifting over to a corporate entity. There's a lot of potential implications there. But aside from that, institutions, a lot of them, particularly those that manage public or pension funds, they cannot invest in LLCs or S Corps, which are pass-throughs. Additionally, sophisticated or savvy investors don't want the liability or the exposure or the tax implications being on the hook for those types of things. Remember, these are pass-through entities. And so they have to have a C Corp in order for them to invest in certain things. So again, right? But that's under the presumption or assumption that you have cash flow that would enable the servicing of some type of debt. There are a host of non-traditional financing sources out there, so non-commercial financing sources. If you think of the OnDecks, if you think of the New Tech Business Capitals of the world and others, that will give you small credit facilities, 100 to 250,000. I think there's a couple different ways to approach this, and I'll meander a little bit through it. But I think first and foremost, it's the need for a clear understanding of your individual value proposition as to why this specific product, and or service is needed and solves an issue now and going forward that's not currently addressed. Clear understanding and having that defined so that you can figure out your overall positioning and messaging is really important. I think the backdrop to a lot of what I'm about to say is the sense that obviously over the last 18 to 24 months, there's been a dramatic shift in the fundraising landscape. You've seen a pivot from a low interest rate environment and capital being deployed into riskier assets almost serially, regardless or irrespective of profits or vision and sightlines into profitability. And a retrenchment by the funding sources, particularly institutionally, into really either parsing capital into and or clearly understanding what your value creation or value inflection points are. So having a